The knock came at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, just as I was settling in with leftover pasta and the kind of mindless TV show that helped me forget about the long shift I'd just finished at the warehouse. I wasn't expecting anyone. I never expected anyone. My life had become pleasantly predictable in its solitude. Work, home, repeat. No drama, no demands, no voices telling me I wasn't good enough. When I opened the door, there stood Marcus, my older brother, with 2 expensive leather suitcases at his feet and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The smile that used to charm our parents, impress our relatives, and make everyone believe he was destined for greatness while I was destined for mediocrity. "Hey, little brother," he said, like we'd just seen each other yesterday instead of the 8 months it had actually been. 8 months of blissful silence. I didn't say anything. Just looked at him, then down at the suitcases, then back at his face. He'd lost weight. His designer shirt, the kind he used to brag cost more than my weekly paycheck, hung looser than it should. There were circles under his eyes that makeup or lighting couldn't hide. "Look, I know this is unexpected," Marcus said, already moving as if to step inside, "but I'm in a bit of a situation. Just need to crash for a few weeks. You've got space, right?" I noticed the business brochures sticking out of the side pocket of his bag. Marcus Chen, CEO, Pinnacle Solutions. The company he'd built his entire identity around. The company he'd used as a weapon against me for the last 3 years. I looked past him at the hallway, then back at his face. At the expectation written there, the assumption that of course I'd help him. That's what I did, right? I helped Marcus. I'd been helping Marcus my entire life. "Sorry," I said, and the word felt strange and powerful in my mouth. "No spare room." His smile froze, then slowly melted into confusion. "What?" "I don't have a spare room," I repeated, keeping my voice calm and even. "Good luck finding a place." "Wait." He actually tried to put his foot in the door, like he thought I was joking. "Sean, come on. We're family. You can't just—" "I can," I said, and I closed the door, slowly, deliberately, giving him plenty of time to move his foot, which he did, stumbling backward in shock. I turned the deadbolt, heard him knock again, harder this time. Sean, open the door. This isn't funny." I walked back to my couch, picked up my plate of pasta, and turned up the volume on the TV. The knocking continued for another minute, then stopped. Through the window, I watched him drag his expensive suitcases down the sidewalk, pulling out his phone, probably calling someone else to save him. Not my problem anymore. I took a bite of pasta and realized I was smiling. Actually smiling. When was the last time that had happened? Let me tell you how we got here. Let me tell you about growing up as Marcus Chen's little brother, and why closing that door felt like the first real decision I'd made in 32 years. We grew up in a suburban neighborhood where success was measured in square footage and the make of your car. Our parents, Chinese immigrants who'd worked themselves to exhaustion building a comfortable middle-class life, had very specific ideas about what their sons should become. Marcus, 4 years older than me, seemed designed by central casting to fulfill every immigrant parent dream. Charismatic, confident, ambitious. He was student body president in high school. He got into a good college on a partial scholarship. He networked like it was an Olympic sport. And then there was me. I tried at first. I really did. I studied hard, joined clubs, attempted to mirror Marcus's social ease, but I was wired differently. Quieter, more introspective. I liked working with my hands, liked seeing tangible results from physical labor. I liked the satisfaction of a job completed, a problem solved, something fixed that had been broken. My parents didn't understand it. "Why you not like Marcus?" my mother would ask, her English still heavily accented even after 30 years in America. "He's so smart, so ambitious. You need be more like him." At family dinners, the conversation always circled back to Marcus, his latest business idea, his networking triumphs, his 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan. "And Sean?" Auntie Wei would ask politely, like an afterthought. "What are you doing now?" "I'm working at a warehouse," I'd say. "Inventory management. It's steady work, good benefits." "Warehouse?" Uncle Tom would interrupt, laughing like I'd told a joke. "When are you going to get a real career? Look at Marcus. He's starting his own business." Marcus would smile, that modest smile that wasn't modest at all. Different strokes, right? Some people are built to lead. Some people are built to follow. Nothing wrong with being a worker bee, Sean. Someone's got to do those jobs. The table would laugh. My mother would change the subject quickly, embarrassed. My father would give me a disappointed look that said everything his words didn't. And I'd sit there, fork suspended over my plate, wondering why the work I did, honest work, necessary work, was treated like a failure. Marcus started Pinnacle Solutions when he was 26. It was a consulting firm, helping small businesses optimize their operations and maximize growth potential. That's how he described it in the glossy brochures he had printed, the ones he handed out at every family gathering like they were business cards from heaven. For the first year, the business struggled. He was living off credit cards and our parents' investments, loans they'd never ask him to repay. He worked from a cramped office space that cost more than my rent, convinced that looking successful was the first step to being successful. I was 24, working at a delivery company, living in a studio apartment with furniture I'd found on the street and fixed up myself. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive, but it was mine, paid for by my own labor. Marcus would call me during those early days, his voice tight with stress. "Sean, can you help me move some equipment this weekend? I'll buy you lunch." I'd show up with my truck, an old Toyota I'd bought for $3,000 and maintained myself, and spend 6 hours hauling boxes while Marcus supervised and made calls. Lunch would be a drive-through burger. "Thanks, man," he'd say, already distracted by his phone. "You're a lifesaver. I'll remember this when I'm successful." I believed him. I actually believed that my help mattered, that he appreciated it, that when his ship came in, he'd remember his little brother who'd spent countless weekends helping him chase his dreams. Then Pinnacle Solutions got its first major client. Everything changed overnight. The local newspaper did a feature on him. "Young Entrepreneur Disrupts Consulting Industry." The headline made it sound like he'd invented something revolutionary instead of just being another business consultant with good networking skills. But to our family, to our community, Marcus became a celebrity. Suddenly, family dinners were insufferable. Marcus would arrive late, making an entrance, apologizing about back-to-back client meetings. He'd check his phone constantly, sighing about how demanding success was. "Sean still doing warehouse work?" Uncle Tom asked one night, his tone making it clear he already knew the answer and found it disappointing. "Yeah," I said. I'd been promoted to shift supervisor, was making decent money, had just moved into a better apartment, but I knew better than to mention it. Success was relative, and relative to Marcus, I was invisible. "That's nice," Auntie Wei said in that voice people use when they don't know what else to say. "Steady job, that's nice." "Very noble," Marcus added, cutting into his steak. "Honestly, Sean, I admire it. Someone has to do the unglamorous work, right? Not everyone can handle the pressure of running a business. There's no shame in being a hard worker. Blue-collar jobs are the backbone of America." He said it like he was defending me, like his condescension was kindness. My mother patted my hand. "Sean is a good boy. He helped Marcus a lot." "Oh, absolutely," Marcus agreed. "Sean's been great. Always there when I need something moved or fixed, like having a personal handyman in the family." He laughed, and others joined in. I excused myself early that night, claiming an early shift the next morning. No one seemed particularly disappointed. The worst part wasn't the direct insults. I could have handled that. The worst part was how my role in the family had been reduced to Marcus's assistant, the person who showed up when he needed something. "Sean, can you watch my kids this Saturday? I have a major client presentation." "Sean, my car is making a weird noise. Can you take a look?" "Sean, I'm moving into a bigger office space. Can you help me this weekend?" I'd hire movers, but, saving money where I can. Every request came with the same unspoken assumption. "Of course you'll do it. What else do you have going on?" And I did it. Every time. Because that's what family did, right? You helped each other. Except the help only flowed one direction. When I asked Marcus if he knew anyone hiring for management positions, I was trying to move up, to progress in my career, he'd said, "Management? Sean, no offense, but you don't really have the background for that. You need an MBA, business experience. Stick with what you're good at. Nothing wrong with being a warehouse guy." When I mentioned I was thinking about taking some business classes at community college, he'd laughed. "At your age? Sean, that's cute, but those classes are designed for kids. You'd be the old guy in the room. Plus, let's be honest, school was never really your thing." School had been fine for me. I'd graduated with a solid GPA. But compared to Marcus, solid meant mediocre. The breaking point, or what should have been the breaking point if I'd had any self-respect back then, came at his office warming party. Pinnacle Solutions had moved into a sleek downtown space with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary. Marcus had invited the whole family, along with his clients and business partners, for a celebration. I showed up in my best clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt I'd bought specifically for the occasion. Still looked cheap compared to everyone else's designer outfits. Marcus greeted me at the door with a hug that felt like a performance. "Sean, glad you could make it. Park yourself by the food, help yourself to drinks. Oh, and if you get a chance, there are some boxes in the back room that need to be broken down and taken to the dumpster. I know you're good at that kind of thing." He said it casually, like he was doing me a favor by giving me a task. Like I was staff, not family. I should have left right then. Should have told him to break down his own boxes. But I didn't. I smiled, said sure, and spent the first hour of his party in a back room, flattening cardboard while I could hear laughter and conversation from the main space. When I finally emerged, Marcus was in the middle of a speech. His business partner, Derek, stood next to him, both holding champagne glasses. Couldn't have done it without the support of my family, Marcus was saying. Especially my parents, who believed in me from day one, and my brother Sean, who's been such a loyal helper, always there when I need a hand with the heavy lifting. Everyone laughed. The kind of laugh that was knowing, slightly condescending. The "how nice that successful people have helpful relatives" laugh. Marcus raised his glass toward me. "To family, to loyal helpers." I raised my water glass. I'd been too focused on the boxes to grab a real drink, and felt my face burn. After the speech, as people mingled and networked, Marcus pulled me aside. He reached into his wallet and pulled out 2 20s. "Here," he said, pressing them into my hand. "Consider this a bonus for being such a loyal helper. And for the boxes. You really saved me there. $40. He'd just signed a 6-figure contract. He'd been bragging about it to anyone who'd listen. And he was tipping me $40 like I was hired help. Marcus, I don't need... No, I insist. You worked hard today. You earned it." He patted my shoulder and moved on to more important guests. I stood there holding $40 and feeling like I'd been slapped. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of watching Marcus build his empire while using me as free labor. 3 years of family gatherings where I was the cautionary tale and he was the success story. 3 years of being told in 1,000 subtle ways that my life didn't matter because I wasn't making 6 figures or running a company or playing the game by their rules. But something shifted after that office party. I stopped answering Marcus's calls as quickly. Started saying no to weekend requests. Began investing in myself. Took those community college business classes he'd mocked, learned about financial planning, started building real savings instead of just scraping by. I moved into a better apartment, 1 bedroom, clean, in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it had good light and enough space for the life I wanted to build. I stopped going to every family dinner, made excuses, claimed work obligations, gradually extracted myself from the constant comparisons and disappointments. My parents noticed. "Why you not come anymore?" my mother asked. "Marcus always asking about you." I doubted that. Marcus asking about me meant Marcus needed something. "I'm busy, Mom. Work has been demanding. But family is important. You need to support Marcus. His business is growing so much. You should be proud." Proud. I should be proud of the brother who'd treated me like a servant for years. The brother who'd built his success partially on my free labor and entirely on the foundation of my humiliation. I started building a life that had nothing to do with Marcus. Made friends at work. Real friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could do for them. Started dating occasionally, nothing serious, but it was nice to be seen as someone worth knowing. I learned to cook properly, started working out, read books, invested time in hobbies I'd neglected because I was always available to help Marcus. And slowly, quietly, I became happy. Not happy in the flashy, social media-worthy way that Marcus defined success. Happy in the way that meant I woke up each morning without a knot in my stomach. Happy in the way that meant my apartment felt like a sanctuary instead of a waiting room for the next family obligation. I didn't know it then, but I was building the foundation that would make closing the door on Marcus possible. The first signs of trouble with Pinnacle Solutions came about 18 months ago, though I didn't know it at the time. Marcus's social media posts, which had been a constant stream of hustle culture, motivational quotes, and humble brags about client meetings, began to change. Less frequent, more defensive. Real entrepreneurs know that success isn't linear. Temporary setbacks are just opportunities for comebacks. As Hasho grind mode, hush trust the process. Then, cutting dead weight from my business. If people can't handle the pressure, they're not meant for this level. Only the strong survive. Cha business is war. I learned later that he'd fired 3 employees who'd questioned his spending habits. Pinnacle Solutions was hemorrhaging money faster than it was bringing it in, but Marcus had convinced himself that the solution was to look even more successful. New office furniture, a leased BMW, designer suits, expensive client dinners charged to the company card. He'd expanded too fast, taking on overhead that required constant new contracts to justify. When the contracts didn't come fast enough, he started taking on debt, business loans with terrible terms. Credit cards maxed out on business expenses that were really just lifestyle maintenance. I heard snippets at family dinners, the ones I still occasionally attended. "Marcus working so hard," my mother would say, worry creasing her forehead. "He looks tired." "He's stressed," my father added. "But successful people are always stressed. That's the price of ambition." I said nothing, partly because I didn't know the details, mostly because I'd learned that expressing concern about Marcus was interpreted as jealousy. The real collapse came suddenly, the way these things do when you've been ignoring warning signs for months. It started with a lawsuit. A former client claimed Pinnacle Solutions had overbilled them and failed to deliver on promised services. The lawsuit was legitimate. Marcus had been so focused on acquiring new clients that he'd neglected existing ones, throwing together shoddy reports and calling it consulting. The lawsuit made local news. Local consulting firm faces fraud allegations. Marcus's response was to double down. He posted a long Facebook rant about how haters were trying to destroy him because they were jealous of his success. He called the former client unprofessional and vindictive. This, predictably, led to more former clients coming forward with their own complaints. Then employees started quitting. Or rather, Marcus fired them because he could no longer afford payroll. He spun it on social media as restructuring for efficiency. The BMW got repossessed. He posted a photo of himself in an Uber with a caption about choosing to be environmentally conscious. The fancy office space got downgraded to a small rented room in a shared workspace. Downsizing to focus on what really matters, the work, not the aesthetics. Minimalism, shock Back-Tomi roots. My parents started mentioning money troubles at family dinners. "Marcus is going through a difficult time," my mother said, her voice tight with worry. "Business is very hard. He's very stressed." "He needs support," my father added, looking at me meaningfully. "Family needs to support each other." I knew what was coming. Could see it forming like storm clouds. "Maybe you could help him, Sean. You're good with numbers, with organizing. Maybe he needs someone practical around him." Translation: "Maybe you could work for your brother for free and help clean up his mess." "I don't think that's a good idea," I said carefully. "Marcus and I work differently. I don't think we'd collaborate well." "You're brothers," Auntie Wei interjected. "Of course you'd work well together. Sean, you need to put aside any petty feelings. Marcus needs family right now." Petty feelings. 3 years of being treated like hired help, and my accumulated resentment was petty feelings. "I'll think about it," I said, which was a polite way of saying no that our culture understood but wouldn't challenge directly. Marcus didn't call me during this period. Even in crisis, his pride wouldn't let him admit he might need the little brother he'd spent years belittling. Then came the final collapse. The lawsuit settled out of court for an amount that basically bankrupted Pinnacle Solutions. Marcus had to liquidate everything: equipment, furniture, whatever he could sell to cover debts. His house went into foreclosure, the house he'd bought 3 years ago and used as proof of his success. "Before 30, he'd bragged. "I owned property before 30. How many people can say that?" A lot of people, it turned out. But most of them didn't buy houses they couldn't actually afford with loans they had no business taking out. He moved in with our parents temporarily, just until I regroup and launch my next venture. Our parents' small house suddenly felt even smaller. Marcus's stress filled every room. He'd pace the living room at night, on the phone with creditors, his voice swinging between aggressive and pleading. "I just need more time. I have new contracts coming in. This is temporary." But the contracts weren't coming. His reputation was destroyed. Marcus Chen was now associated with lawsuits and failed ventures. The networking connections that had been his greatest asset had evaporated. He tried to maintain appearances at first, still posted on social media, though the tone had changed from motivational to defensive. Real entrepreneurs know that failure is just a stepping stone to success. Everyone who's achieved anything has faced setbacks. This is temporary. Watch me come back stronger. The comments were less supportive than they used to be, more skeptical. Some were outright hostile, people who'd felt scammed by his consulting services coming out to say so publicly. He deleted those posts after a few days. Living with our parents meant living under their microscope. Our mother hovered constantly, worried and confused. Her golden child was tarnished, and she didn't know how to process it. "Maybe you just need rest," she'd say. "Too much stress. You work too hard." "I don't need rest, Mom. I need capital. I need backing for the next phase. I have ideas, big ideas, but I need someone to believe in me." "We believe in you," our father would say, but his voice lacked conviction. They'd already invested $50,000 into Pinnacle Solutions. Money they'd never see again. Money that was supposed to fund their retirement. Marcus would retreat to the guest room, my old bedroom, actually, though it had been converted into a home office years ago. I heard he spent hours in there, making calls to old contacts, pitching new business ideas, trying to recapture the magic that had fueled his initial success. It wasn't working. Uncle Tom visited one evening. I heard about this later from my mother, who called me in tears. Uncle Tom offered Marcus a job, she said, at his construction company. Good job, good pay. Marcus said no, said it was beneath him, that he's not meant to work for other people. What did Uncle Tom say? He said Marcus needs to face reality, that the business failed and he needs to move on. Marcus got angry. They had a big fight. Now Uncle Tom says Marcus is being spoiled and entitled, our own family turning on him when he needs support. I didn't point out that Uncle Tom might be right, that sometimes facing reality is exactly what someone needs. After 2 months, our parents sat him down, I heard about this later from my mother, and told him he needed to find his own place. Gently, of course, with love and support. But the message was clear. You're 34 years old. You can't live with your parents indefinitely. He cried, my mother told me over the phone, her voice breaking. Your brother cried like a little boy, said we were abandoning him, that he thought family was supposed to stick together. What did Dad say? He said family does stick together, but Marcus needs to take responsibility, needs to get a regular job, any job, and rebuild from there. Marcus says he's not meant for regular jobs, that he's an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs need income too, Mom. I know. But it's hard to see him like this. He used to be so confident, so successful. Now he's... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Broken, I thought. He's broken. But I didn't say it. After that conversation, Marcus started looking for a place to rent, but his credit was destroyed. He had no current income. Landlords wanted 3 months' rent up front, which he didn't have. That's when he started calling me. The first call came on a Tuesday evening. I was at home, making dinner, listening to a podcast, enjoying the quiet of my one-bedroom apartment that I'd worked so hard to afford. Sean, hey, it's Marcus. Like I wouldn't know my own brother's voice. Like we talked so frequently that I might be confused about who was calling. Hey, what's up? Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm looking for a place right now, and the rental market is crazy. Everything's so expensive. Landlords want all this money up front, and I'm kind of in between income streams at the moment. In between income streams. Not unemployed, not broke. In between income streams. Okay, I said neutrally. So I was thinking, you've got that one-bedroom place, right? Nice neighborhood, quiet. I could crash with you for a bit, just until I get back on my feet. A couple weeks, maybe a month tops. There it was, the ask. Dressed up in casual language, delivered with the assumption that of course I'd agree. I don't think that's a good idea, Marcus. Why not? You've got space, and I wouldn't be in your way or anything. I'm barely home, always out networking, making connections, working on the next thing. It's a one-bedroom apartment. There's no spare room. You've got a couch, though, right? I'm not picky. I just need somewhere to lay my head while I figure things out. Marcus, look, I know we haven't been super close lately. I've been busy building the business, and you've had your thing going on. But we're brothers, family. This is what family does. They help each other out in tough times. He said it so casually. Family helps each other. Like the help had ever been mutual. Like I hadn't spent years helping him while getting nothing but condescension in return. I'm sorry, but I can't help you with this. Silence. Then, can't or won't. Both. Seriously? You're really going to leave me hanging? I've got nowhere else to go, Sean. You have friends, business contacts, all those people you've been networking with for years. Those people, he stopped, regrouped. Those relationships are professional. I can't ask them for personal favors. But your family. Family is different. Is it? What does that mean? I could have said so much. Could have listed every humiliation, every dismissive comment, every time he'd treated me like hired help instead of a brother. Could have asked him when he'd last done anything for me that didn't benefit him, but I didn't. Because engaging would just open a door for argument, negotiation, manipulation. It means I can't help you. Good luck finding a place. Wait, Sean? I ended the call. My hands were shaking. I'd never done that before. Never just cut him off mid-sentence. Never refused him so directly. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. The calls continued over the next few days, Marcus trying different approaches. I'll pay rent. Whatever you think is fair. He had no money. It'll be temporary, I promise. Just until I close this deal I'm working on. There was no deal. Come on, don't be petty. This isn't like you. Maybe he never knew what I was actually like. When the calls didn't work, he enlisted the family. My mother called, crying. Please, Sean, he's your brother. He's going through such a hard time. You have space. Why won't you help? Mom, I love you, but this isn't my problem to solve. Not your problem? He's family. How can you say that? Did you ask Marcus to help me when I needed it? When I was struggling to make rent in my first apartment? When my car broke down and I needed money for repairs? That was different. You managed. You didn't need help. I managed because I had to, because no one offered. Marcus needs to learn to manage too. She hung up on me. Auntie Wei called next. Uncle Tom, Cousin Jennifer, each with their own version of the same message. How could I be so heartless? Marcus was family. He needed support. I had space. What kind of person turns their back on family? The messages came via text too. Long paragraphs about family obligation, about being selfish, about how I'd regret this someday. You're going to look back on this and be ashamed, one cousin wrote. When Marcus gets back on his feet, and he will, because he's a fighter, you'll have to live with knowing you weren't there when he needed you. I blocked most of them. Not out of anger exactly, more like self-preservation. Each message was designed to erode my resolve, to make me doubt myself, to make me feel like a bad person for having boundaries. Rachel, my coworker, became my anchor during this time. They're gaslighting you, she said when I showed her some of the messages, making you think you're crazy for having perfectly reasonable boundaries. Maybe I am being selfish, I said. He really is struggling. So? That doesn't obligate you to fix it. Sean, you've told me stories about how he treated you for years. He made you feel worthless, used you as free labor, mocked your job, your life, your choices, and now that he needs something, suddenly you're supposed to forget all that and welcome him with open arms? He's my brother. Being related doesn't give someone the right to treat you badly and then demand your help. If a friend treated you the way Marcus has treated you, would you let them move in? No. Then why does being related change that? It was a good question, one I didn't have a good answer for. The day Marcus showed up at my door, 2 weeks after our first phone conversation, I'd been expecting it, dreading it, but expecting it. I'd practiced what I'd say, rehearsed staying firm, reminded myself of every reason why this was the right decision. But seeing him there, with his suitcases and his desperation barely hidden under that fake smile, part of me still wanted to cave. Part of me still wanted to be the good brother, the helpful one, the one who came through. That's how deep the programming ran. Look, I know this is unexpected, he'd said, but I'm in a bit of a situation. A situation, not I failed, not I made mistakes. A situation, like it was something that happened to him rather than something he created. Just need to crash for a few weeks. You've got space, right? The assumption, that's what broke through my momentary wavering. The assumption that of course I had space, that of course I'd say yes, that my life, my home, my peace were all just resources available for his convenience. Sorry, no spare room. And I'd close the door. They don't understand the pressure I'm under, Marcus complained to me during a rare phone call. We'd barely spoken in months, but apparently crisis made him remember I existed. I'm trying to rebuild. That takes time. They're treating me like a failure. I didn't point out that he was treating their house like a hotel while contributing nothing to expenses. Didn't mention that our father was still working at 67 partially because of the money he'd invested in Marcus's failed business. I'm sure you'll figure it out, I said neutrally. Actually, that's kind of why I'm calling. I was thinking, I have to go, Marcus. Work emergency. There wasn't a work emergency, but I knew where that sentence was headed, and I wasn't ready to have that conversation over the phone. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my door. After I closed the door on Marcus, I stood in my small apartment and felt something I hadn't expected. Guilt. It crept in slowly, insidious. We're family. He's struggling. Would it really be so bad to let him stay a few weeks? I could hear his voice in my head, and worse, I could hear our mother's voice. Family helps family. You're brothers. How can you turn away your own blood? I sat down with my pasta, but I couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots. I kept replaying the moment. His face when I said no, the confusion and then anger that flickered across his expression. The way he'd tried to push the door open, like he couldn't believe I was actually refusing him. My phone started buzzing almost immediately, text after text, from Marcus. Are you serious right now? You're really not going to help me? Then, I can't believe you, after everything. Then, you know what? Forget it. I don't need your help anyway. Then, seriously though, can we talk about this? Call me. I turned my phone face down and tried to eat. The pasta tasted like cardboard. Or maybe my mouth was just too dry to taste anything. Then the phone rang. My mother. I stared at it, watching it vibrate and flash her name. Let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. Sean? Why you not answer phone? Marcus just called me, very upset. He says you won't let him stay with you. What is this? What's going on? Mom, I don't have room for him here. You have 1-bedroom apartment. He can sleep on couch. This is not about room. This is about you being selfish. The word hit like a slap. Selfish. It was the nuclear option in our family. The word that ended arguments because who could defend being selfish? I'm not being selfish. I'm setting a boundary. Boundary? What is boundary? You are brothers. Brothers help each other. He is having very hard time right now. Lost his business, lost everything. And you want to turn him away? To be homeless? He's not homeless, Mom. He has options. What options? He has no money. Can't afford apartment. We can't keep him here. Your father's health is not good. The stress is too much. You're his only choice. His only choice. As if his predicament gave him automatic rights to my space, my peace, my life. Mom, I'm sorry he's struggling. I really am. But letting him move in isn't going to help him. He needs to figure this out himself. How can you be so cold? This is not the son I raised. I raised you to care about family, to help family. Your father and I, we sacrifice everything for you boys. And this is how you repay us? The guilt was suffocating. Years of programming, of being told that family obligation superseded everything else, crashed down on me. But underneath the guilt was something else, something newer and stronger. Anger. Mom, where was this family obligation when Marcus was treating me like his personal assistant for 3 years? When he was giving me $40 like a tip after I spent all day helping him move? When he was telling everyone at family dinners that I was just a worker, nothing special? That was business talk. He didn't mean anything by it. You're too sensitive. No, Mom, I'm not too sensitive. I'm done being treated like I don't matter unless someone needs something from me. I heard her sharp intake of breath. In our family, talking back like this was unheard of, especially to our mother. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Your brother is in crisis, and you're bringing up old hurts? Petty things? They're not petty to me. Sean. My father's voice came on the line. He must have taken the phone from her. Listen to me. I understand you're angry with Marcus. Maybe you have reasons. But right now, he needs help. We all need to put aside our differences and support family. Dad, I'm not putting aside differences. I'm protecting myself. Protecting yourself from what? From helping your brother for a few weeks? From being used again? From letting someone into my life who spent years making me feel worthless? That's very dramatic. Marcus never made you feel worthless. You're exaggerating. And there it was. The invalidation. My experiences, my feelings, my reality. All dismissed as exaggeration. I have to go, Dad. Sean, wait. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never hung up on my father before. Never refused a direct request from my mother. Never stood firm against the full weight of family obligation being pressed down on me. It felt like I jumped off a cliff. Terrifying and liberating and irreversible. The phone continued to buzz for the next hour. Messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in months, all suddenly concerned about family unity. Auntie Wei. Sean, I heard what happened. This is very disappointing. Marcus needs family right now. How can you be so heartless? Uncle Tom, your mother is crying. Your father is upset. Marcus is desperate. Is this really the man you want to be? Cousin Jennifer. I always thought you were the nice brother. Guess I was wrong. Family sticks together, but apparently you didn't get that memo. Each message was a knife, designed to cut, to make me bleed guilt until I gave in. I turned my phone off completely, sat in the silence of my apartment, listening to my own breathing, trying to center myself. Rachel's words echoed in my mind. They're gaslighting you, making you think you're crazy for having perfectly reasonable boundaries. Was I crazy? Was I being unreasonable? I thought about my apartment, small but clean, peaceful, mine. A space I'd worked hard to afford, where I could be myself without judgment or demands. I thought about what would happen if I let Marcus move in. He'd take over the couch, spread his things everywhere. His stress would fill the space, his phone calls with creditors would shatter the quiet. His presence would be a constant reminder of everything he thought I wasn't: successful, ambitious, worthy. And when he eventually got back on his feet, if he got back on his feet, would he thank me? Would he acknowledge the sacrifice? No. He'd tell people he'd stayed with me temporarily while he regrouped. I'd be a footnote in his comeback story. Again. I made myself eat the pasta, cold as it was, forced myself to watch the show, to go through the motions of my normal evening routine. But inside, I was at war with myself. One voice said, "He's your brother. He needs help. You're being cruel." Another voice said, "He treated you terribly for years. You don't owe him anything." The first voice, "But he's struggling. He lost everything." The second voice, "And whose fault is that?" The first voice, "Family is supposed to forgive, supposed to help." The second voice, "Family is supposed to respect you too." Where was that? Back and forth, round and round. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time I started to drift off, I'd think about Marcus sitting in his car somewhere or checking into a cheap motel he couldn't really afford, and the guilt would spike. But then I'd remember his face at that office party, the way he'd handed me $40 like a tip, the years of being treated as less than, and the guilt would transform into something else. Not quite anger, more like resolution. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 37 unread messages, 12 missed calls. I deleted them all without reading. Then I texted Rachel. I held firm. He's gone. But the family is losing their minds. Her response came immediately. Good for you. Let them lose their minds. You took care of yourself. That's what matters. I feel like a terrible person. You feel guilty because you've been trained to feel guilty whenever you prioritize yourself. That's not the same as actually being terrible. Terrible would be treating your brother the way he treated you. She was right. Intellectually, I knew she was right. Emotionally, I still felt like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. If I let Marcus stay a few weeks, what would actually happen? He'd take over my space. He'd sprawl on my couch, spread his things everywhere, fill my quiet apartment with his stress and his phone calls and his inability to take responsibility for his situation. He'd expect me to help him, drive him to job interviews, help him network, listen to his plans for the next big thing, absorb his anxiety and frustration, and most importantly, he would not be grateful. Because in Marcus's worldview, I owed him. I'd always owed him. He was the ambitious one, the successful one. Never mind that his success had imploded. In his mind, his temporary setback didn't change our fundamental dynamic. He was still Marcus, the golden child. I was still Sean, the loyal helper. If I let him in now, I'd be confirming what he'd always believed, that my purpose was to support him, that my space, my peace, my carefully rebuilt life were just resources available for his use. And when he got back on his feet, if he got back on his feet, would he thank me? Would he remember this favor the way I'd remembered all the weekends I'd spent helping him? No. He'd tell the story as proof of his resilience. Yeah, I hit a rough patch. Had to stay with my brother for a while. But I never gave up. I kept hustling. That's what separates winners from quitters. I'd be a footnote in his comeback story. Again. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Seriously? You're really not going to help me after everything I've done for you? I stared at that message. Everything he'd done for me. What had he done for me exactly? Given me the privilege of helping him? Allowed me to bask in the reflected glory of his success while he reminded everyone that I was the less ambitious brother? I deleted the text without responding. Another text came through, this one from my mother. Sean, Marcus says you won't let him stay with you. He has nowhere to go. Please help your brother. Family is everything. Family is everything. I'd heard that my whole life. It was the obligation that kept me showing up, kept me helping, kept me swallowing my pride and accepting my role as the lesser son. But what about the obligation family had to me? What about not treating me like a servant? What about respecting my work, my life, my choices? I called my mother instead of texting back. Sean? She answered immediately, her voice tight with stress. Marcus says, I know what Marcus says, Mom, but I don't have room for him here. You have one-bedroom apartment. He can sleep on couch. Mom, I'm not letting Marcus stay here. Silence. Then, in a wounded voice, why you so selfish? He's your brother. He's having a hard time. Selfish. There it was. The word I'd been called, implicitly or explicitly, every time I'd prioritized my own needs over Marcus's wants. I'm not being selfish. I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries? What is boundaries? You are brothers. You help each other. I helped him for years, Mom. When did he help me? He's successful. He doesn't need help. You should be proud to have a successful brother. He's not successful anymore. His business failed, and that's not my problem. I heard her sharp intake of breath. In our family, saying something like that out loud was almost unforgivable. You didn't acknowledge failure directly. You wrapped it in euphemisms and called it temporary setbacks. Sean, my father's voice came on the line. He must have taken the phone from her. This is not like you. Marcus needs support right now. We can't help him anymore. We don't have the space, and our health is not good. You're his brother. It's your duty. My duty, my role, my purpose in the family structure. Dad, I love you both, but I'm not letting Marcus stay here. He can find a motel, a friend's place, something else. My apartment isn't available. You've changed, my father said, and his voice carried disappointment so heavy I could feel it through the phone. You've become hard, cold. This is not how we raised you. They'd raised me to be accommodating, helpful, grateful for any scraps of acknowledgement that came my way. They'd raised me to accept my role as the supporting character in Marcus's story. I have to go, Dad. I'll call you later. I hung up before he could respond. My phone exploded with messages over the next hour. Marcus alternating between angry and pleading. My mother sending crying emojis and messages about family duty. Auntie Wei, Uncle Tom, various relatives who'd apparently been drafted into the campaign to make me feel guilty. The messages shared common themes. How can you be so heartless? He's your brother. What if you needed help someday? He's going through a crisis. This is so selfish. You're destroying this family. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and finished my pasta. It had gone cold, but I ate it anyway, methodically, while watching my show. A nature documentary about wolves. The narrator was explaining pack dynamics, alpha hierarchies, survival strategies. It struck me as funny, in a dark way. We pretend human families are different, more noble than pack animals. But we still have hierarchies. We still have favorites and scapegoats. We still distribute resources based on perceived value. Marcus had been the alpha. I'd been... what? The omega? The one who accepted whatever role was left over? Not anymore. The campaign to break me down continued for 3 days. Marcus tried showing up again, this time looking more desperate. I watched through the peephole as he knocked, but I didn't open the door. Eventually, he left. My mother called daily, her voice getting progressively more strained. Marcus, sleeping in his car, Sean. His car. Your brother is sleeping in car. He has money for a motel, I said. Marcus had sold off his expensive furniture and equipment. He wasn't destitute, just unwilling to spend his limited resources on accommodation when he thought he could guilt me into free housing. Motel is expensive. He needs to save money. Then he can stay with friends. He has no friends. Everyone abandons him. I didn't point out that maybe there was a reason for that. People who only maintain relationships for what they can extract tend to find themselves alone when they stop being useful. Uncle Tom tried a different approach, calling me at work. Sean, I want to talk to you man to man. I know Marcus can be difficult, but he's family, and more than that, you have an opportunity here. An opportunity? To be the bigger person, to show him what real character looks like. He's never had to struggle before. This is when he needs to see what real strength is, and you can show him that. It was the most manipulative thing I'd heard yet because it almost worked. It appealed to my desire to be seen, to be valued, to demonstrate that my quiet life had meaning. I appreciate what you're trying to say, Uncle Tom, but no. You're making a mistake. Family is all we have. When you cut off family, you cut off a part of yourself. Maybe that's true, but maybe some parts need to be cut off to let the rest heal. He hung up without saying goodbye. The messages got nastier as days passed, and I didn't crack. From Marcus. You're pathetic. Always have been. Jealous of my success, so now you're kicking me when I'm down. Real classy, little brother. From a cousin I barely knew. I always thought you were the nice brother. Guess we were all wrong about you. From my mother. You're breaking my heart. I didn't raise you to be this person. Each message was designed to find a crack, to locate the guilt and shame they'd been instilling in me for years and leverage it into compliance. And I won't lie, it hurt. Each one hurt. I wasn't made of stone. These were people I loved, people whose opinions had mattered to me for my entire life. But I'd learned something crucial during those 2 years of distance I'd put between myself and the family dynamics. Their love had always been conditional. It was based on my usefulness, my compliance, my willingness to accept my assigned role. When I'd been showing up to help Marcus move furniture, I was a good brother. Now that I was setting boundaries, I was selfish and cold. The love hadn't changed, my behavior had, which meant the love had never been about who I was, it had been about what I did for them. On day 4, Rachel texted me. Rachel was my coworker at the warehouse, one of the few people I'd talked to honestly about my family situation. She was 10 years older than me, divorced, had 2 teenagers she was raising alone while working full-time and taking night classes for her accounting degree. "How you holding up? Your brother's still homeless?" "He's not homeless. He has options. He just doesn't like any of them." "Good for you for standing firm. I know it's hard." "It's exhausting. The whole family is acting like I'm the worst person alive." "Because you finally said no to something unreasonable? That tells you everything you need to know about them." "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh. Like he is struggling, and I do have space. Stop. Listen to yourself." "He is struggling." "Okay, whose fault is that?" "I do have space." "Yeah, space that you earned, that you pay for, that you deserve to keep as your space. This is the guilt talking. Don't let them win." She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and feeling are different things. "What if I regret this later?" I typed back. "What if you let him in and regret that? What if he trashes your peace of mind, refuses to leave, makes your home unlivable? You're not rejecting him out of cruelty. You're protecting yourself from someone who spent years treating you like you don't matter. That's not being harsh. That's being sane." I saved that message. Read it every time the guilt threatened to overwhelm me. On day 6, Marcus got an apartment. I found out from Auntie Wei, who called to inform me, her voice dripping with judgment, that Marcus had found a place after all. "A terrible place," she emphasized. "Very small, bad neighborhood. But at least he has somewhere, no thanks to you." "I'm glad he found something," I said, ignoring the barb. "You should be ashamed. Your parents are so disappointed." After she hung up, I felt lighter. He'd found a place. The emergency, such as it was over. He'd survived without me. My mother called that evening, her voice subdued. "Marcus has apartment now." I heard. "That's good." "It's not good. It's small and dirty and in bad area, all because you wouldn't help him." "Mom, he's an adult. He created this situation and he's handling it. That's what adults do." "You sound different, Sean. Hard. This is not my son." "Maybe you didn't know your son as well as you thought." She made a small sound, hurt and confused. "We always give you everything. Good education, good home, love, and support. And this is how you repay us?" "Everything." They'd given me everything, except the one thing I actually needed, the belief that I was enough as I was. "I love you, Mom, but I'm not going to be the person who rescues Marcus from his own choices anymore. I did that for years. I'm done." "So you'll just watch him suffer? Your own brother?" "He's not suffering. He's facing consequences. There's a difference." She didn't call back after that. The family went quiet for a while. No more texts, no more voicemails, just silence, the kind that's meant to be a punishment. You're cut off. You're in the cold. Come crawling back when you realize you were wrong. But the silence felt like peace. 2 months passed. I fell back into my routine, but it felt different now. Lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until I put it down. Work was good. I got promoted to assistant warehouse manager with a decent raise. I celebrated by taking myself out to a nice dinner at a restaurant I'd always wanted to try but thought was too expensive. I sat alone at a table by the window, ate slowly, savored every bite. The couple at the next table kept glancing at me with pity. Poor guy, eating alone, but I didn't feel pitiful. I felt content. My apartment stayed quiet and clean. No one showed up unannounced. No one called demanding favors. No one made me feel small in my own space. I started dating someone I'd met through a friend of Rachel's. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice. Her name was Lauren. She worked as a veterinary assistant. And when I told her about my family situation, she said, "Good for you for setting boundaries. That's really mature." Mature. Not selfish, not cold, mature. Rachel invited me to her daughter's birthday party. It was a small gathering in their backyard, just family and a few close friends. I watched Rachel with her kids, the way she was with them, loving but firm, supportive but honest. The way she'd raised them to be independent, capable people instead of extensions of her own ego. "Your family still giving you grief?" she asked while we were manning the grill together. "They've gone quiet. I think they're waiting for me to apologize." You going to? No. She smiled and flipped a burger. Good. Later that evening, as the party wound down and I was helping clean up, Rachel's ex-husband showed up to pick up the kids. The interaction was awkward, but civil. After he left, Rachel poured herself a glass of wine and sat heavily in a lawn chair. You know what the hardest part of the divorce was? She asked. Not the end of the relationship. That was honestly a relief. It was accepting that I'd wasted years trying to make someone care about me the way I cared about them. Years of adjusting myself, compromising, trying to be whatever would make him appreciate me. And he never did. Because the problem wasn't me. The problem was him. And there was nothing I could do to fix him or make him see me differently. She looked at me directly. Sound familiar? It did. God, it did. How long did it take you to stop feeling guilty? About leaving him? Years. Probably too many years. I kept thinking maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I'd tried harder, been better, done more. But that's the trap, right? People who treat you badly train you to think it's your fault. That if you just did the right thing, said the right words, became the right person, they'd finally treat you well. But they won't, I said quietly. No, they won't. Because the problem isn't you. It never was. 3 months after closing the door on Marcus, I ran into him at the grocery store. I was in the produce section, comparing prices on bell peppers, when I heard a familiar voice from the next aisle. Yeah, it's been a tough few months, but I'm rebuilding. Starting a new consulting venture, smaller scale, more focused. Learning from past mistakes, you know? Marcus? Talking on his phone, his voice carrying that same false confidence it always had. I could have left, should have left. But something made me stay, listening. The family's been supportive, mostly. My brother, well, that's a different story. He kind of screwed me over when I needed help. But that's behind me now. Some people show their true colors in a crisis, you know? I stepped around the corner before I could second-guess myself. Hey, Marcus. He turned, and I saw the flash of surprise, quickly covered. Sean, hey. He ended his phone call quickly. I have to go. Talk later. We stood there in the grocery store, two brothers who'd grown up in the same house, eaten at the same table, shared the same parents. Strangers now. He looked different, older. His clothes were cheaper than he used to wear. His car keys, visible in his hand, were for a Toyota, not a BMW. The weight loss I'd noticed months ago hadn't reversed. If anything, he looked thinner, more worn down. How are you? I asked, and I was surprised to find I actually wanted to know. Good, really good. Business is picking up. Living in that new place, it's not ideal, but it's temporary. Just until the next venture takes off. Always the next venture, always temporary, never his fault. That's good. Awkward silence. He shifted his weight, looked away, then back at me. Look, Sean, about what happened. When I came by your place, I was in a bad spot and maybe I didn't handle it well. But you have to understand, I was desperate. I waited for the apology. Waited for him to acknowledge the years of belittling, the constant use of me as free labor, the fundamental disrespect. I mean, I would have done the same thing if our situations were reversed. I get it. Everyone has their limits. That was as close to an apology as I was going to get, and it wasn't even really an apology. It was an excuse wrapped in false equivalence. I hope things work out for you, Marcus, I said, and I meant it in a distant way. I hoped he figured his life out. I just didn't want to be part of that process. Yeah, you too. He hesitated, then added, Mom and Dad are still pretty upset with you. I know. You could call them, smooth things over. Family is important, Sean. There it was again. Family is important. The obligation that excused everything, demanded everything, justified everything. I'll think about it, I said, which we both knew meant no. He nodded. Okay. Well, I should go. Good seeing you. Take care, Marcus. I watched him walk away, pushing his cart with its modest groceries, generic brands, nothing fancy. Part of me felt sad for him. The fall from grace was real, and it had to be humiliating. But a larger part of me felt nothing. No guilt, no obligation to help, no desire to reach out and rebuild a bridge I'd never wanted to cross anyway. He was my brother by birth. But that didn't make us family, not in the way that mattered. I didn't call my parents, didn't reach out to Marcus, didn't apologize or explain or justify. I just lived my life. Months turned into a year. My relationship with Lauren got serious. She met Rachel and my work friends. I met her family, Her parents were warm and welcoming in a way that made me realize how dysfunctional my own family dynamics had been. "Your mom is so supportive," I told Lauren after a dinner at her parents' house. Her mother had asked about my new promotion, seemed genuinely interested in my answers, told me she was proud of me even though she'd only known me for a few months. "Yeah, she's great," Lauren agreed. "She can be a little overbearing sometimes, but she means well." I almost laughed. Lauren's definition of overbearing was asking too many questions about our plans. My definition involved being told for 30 years that I was fundamentally inadequate. Work continued to go well. I was good at my job, good at managing people, good at logistics, good at the kind of practical problem solving that doesn't look impressive on paper, but makes everything run smoothly. My boss, Tom, different Tom from Uncle Tom, pulled me aside one day. "Sean, I wanted to let you know that corporate is looking at expanding our regional management team. I put your name forward. They're going to want to interview you." Regional management, a significant step up, more responsibility, better pay, actually using some of those business classes I'd taken. "Really? Thank you. I appreciate that." "You've earned it. You're reliable, competent, and people actually like working for you. That's rarer than you'd think." Reliable. Competent. Liked. Not impressive words. Not the kind of descriptors that get you written up in newspapers or celebrated at family dinners. But they were true, and they mattered. I got the regional management position. The pay increase was substantial enough that I started looking at buying a small house. Nothing fancy, but mine. Lauren and I moved in together. She brought her 2 cats and her collection of too many throw pillows. I contributed my carefully maintained furniture and my newfound ability to cook actual meals. We built a life that was quiet and unremarkable and completely satisfying.